with her fingers as she passed old walls. A single lantern flickered above a door, its glow casting ghostly shadows that twisted and bent with the wind. Somewhere distant, a bell chimed irregularly, marking time that seemed to bend for no reason. Her thoughts were a labyrinth, each corner turning back to memories she had tried to leave behind. Yet they followed her insistently. She stepped into a small square, noticing a fountain, its waters moving in slow circles, reflecting fragments of the cloudy sky. The air smelled of rain and wet stone, mingled with faint traces of roasted chestnuts from a nearby stall. She paused, feeling a shiver, not from the cold, but from something unfamiliar yet compelling. A pigeon fluttered past, startling her slightly, but she laughed softly at her own reaction. Somewhere above, a window cracked open, letting a sliver of candlelight escape, dancing across the wet stones. She tilted her head, sensing that tonight held more than ordinary chance encounters, that fate had threaded a subtle pull she could feel but not name. A shadow passed along the far wall, almost human, almost fleeting, and her pulse quickened. Something told her that she was not alone, though no one had spoken her name yet. She drew a breath, inhaling the damp air as if it carried messages meant only for her. The square seemed to hum softly, an energy she didn't understand but instinctively recognized. And then she saw him, standing under the archway of the alley, a figure partially hidden, yet undeniably present. He was watching the fountain, yet she felt his gaze before he acknowledged hers, a silent magnetism pulling her toward him. His coat was dark, water beading on its surface, and his hair fell in damp strands across his forehead. He smiled faintly, a smile that seemed to contain secrets, quiet laughter, and stories untold. She stepped closer, curiosity mingling with caution, her heartbeat echoing against the stones beneath her feet. He gestured toward the fountain, inviting her without words, and she hesitated only briefly before joining him. The water reflected their images, distorted yet familiar, as if revealing a hidden truth neither could articulate. She noticed the way the air seemed warmer around him, the subtle vibrations of presence that made everything else fade. Raindrops continued their lazy descent, yet she barely felt them, wrapped as she was in the gravity of this unexpected encounter. He spoke first, voice low and melodic, each word chosen carefully, revealing little yet promising more. She laughed softly at something unspoken, a recognition passing between them like a secret only they understood. Every movement he made seemed intentional yet effortless, a choreography she didn't want to interrupt. She realized then that some moments defy logic, that connection sometimes arrives without explanation. The city faded around them, replaced by a cocoon of subtle energy and unspoken understanding. She felt the gentle pull of curiosity, an invitation to explore not just the streets, but the uncharted corners of his presence. Every breath between them was measured, yet infinite, a dialogue of emotion without utterance. And in the hush of the evening, she understood that some stories begin quietly, but their resonance lasts forever. The night deepened, stars hidden behind clouds, as they walked together along a narrow canal lined with ancient walls. Their steps echoed softly, rhythmically, a percussion only they could hear. He gestured toward a small boat tied loosely to the dock, its paint chipped, water sloshing gently against the sides. She watched it sway, feeling the world tilt slightly in her chest, as if hinting at journeys not yet taken. The air smelled faintly of algae and rain-soaked wood, grounding them in the tangibility of the night. She noticed the way his eyes followed the movement of the water, reflecting a mind that saw far more than she could discern. Conversation flowed easily, fragments of life shared in bursts of laughter, fleeting comments and sudden thoughtful silences. She realized that attraction was more than appearance. It was presence, awareness, the alignment of two wavelengths in a chaotic universe. Raindrops shimmered on the canal like liquid diamonds, and she felt them press against her skin with the gentleness of a whisper. He brushed past her, a subtle contact, and she felt warmth ripple through her, a quiet confirmation of awareness. They paused at a bridge, looking down at their reflections, distorted and intertwined, a mirror to the intimacy forming. Her hand brushed his accidentally, a spark igniting, small but persistent. Every shadow along the canal seemed alive, dancing along with the rhythm of their hearts. She felt a thrill not just in attraction, but in recognition. The subtle certainty that this night mattered more than ordinary nights. And in that subtle chaos of mist, water, and shadows, she understood the strange poetry of serendipity. The evening sky hung low, heavy with clouds that promised rain, but had yet to deliver, casting the city in a muted, grey light that made every shadow seem alive. She walked along the deserted quay, her coat drawn tightly around her, listening to the soft lap of water against the dock. Every sound was amplified in the stillness. The creak of old wooden boards, the faint flutter of pigeons taking flight, the distant hum of a street lamp struggling against the dark. She let her fingers trail along the iron railing, feeling the cold bite into her skin, and wondered at the strange pull drawing her toward the end of the pier. Her thoughts wandered, spiraling through memories, both bright and shadowed, wondering if tonight would carry something unexpected, something transformative. A lone lantern swayed gently in the breeze, its light trembling across the wet boards, illuminating fragments of the world she hadn't noticed before. She paused to watch a paper boat drift along the water, thinking of the messages it might carry, real or imagined. Somewhere across the quay, the soft echo of a violin reached her ears, fleeting and almost ghostly, weaving itself into the night air. She shivered, not from cold, but from the uncanny sense that the night itself was alive, listening, waiting. A shadow moved along the dock, distant and undefined, and her heartbeat picked up with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The wind carried scents of damp earth, brine, and distant flowers, grounding her in the moment, while simultaneously lifting her into possibility. She realized she had been walking without direction, yet her feet had taken her exactly where she needed to be. A faint laugh floated from the shadows, soft and melodic, wrapping around her chest like a gentle hand. She looked up, expecting no one, yet there he was, standing beneath the lamp's glow, framed in silver light that made him look almost unreal. His coat clung to his frame with the damp, the droplets glistening like scattered diamonds in the lamplight. He smiled faintly, a mixture of curiosity and recognition, as though he had been expecting her all along. She felt an odd recognition, a resonance deep in her chest, as if the universe had threaded invisible lines between them long before tonight. They moved closer, cautiously, with the gravity of silent acknowledgement drawing them together. Each step they took seemed weighted with significance, the rhythm of the dockboards echoing like a subtle heartbeat. She noticed the way the light caught his eyes, dark yet glimmering with warmth, reflecting the silvered ripples in the water. The quiet between them was alive, filled with unspoken words, promises not yet articulated, a narrative forming in the space between breaths. Raindrops began to fall, gentle at first, then steadily, kissing their faces, soaking through collars and hair. They laughed at the suddenness of it, but neither moved away, letting the storm wrap around them like a cloak of intimacy. Each droplet that landed on her skin seemed to carry possibility, a fragile yet persistent reminder of the night's magic. He reached for her hand, a simple gesture, and she felt electricity surge through the space connecting them. They didn't speak, and words would have been unnecessary. The silence itself was eloquent, each pause brimming with meaning. She realized that love could arrive like this, sudden, inexplicable, yet inevitable, demanding neither explanation nor defense. Every instinct in her screamed to flee and to stay simultaneously, a contradiction that thrilled her senses. They followed the dock to a small boat tied loosely to the pier, rocking softly in the gentle current. He gestured toward it, an unspoken invitation, and she nodded, stepping carefully aboard. The wood creaked under her weight, yet it felt reassuring, grounding, as if the boat were a bridge to another world. The water reflected the lights around them in distorted patterns, abstract yet mesmerizing, hinting at hidden depths she could not see. He reached for the oar, dipping it into the water with deliberate, smooth strokes, guiding the boat forward without a word. She let herself be carried, mesmerized by the movement, the rippling reflections, the quiet intimacy of motion shared. Each glance exchanged felt profound, a silent recognition of uncharted emotions awakening in tandem. The night air was thick with fragrance, whetstone, algae, and the faint, lingering perfume of distant blossoms. She noticed how every subtle gesture, the tilt of his head, the flex of his fingers, the rhythm of his breathing, spoke volumes. They drifted past hidden docks and ivy-covered walls, shadows stretching long across the water, forming patterns that seemed intentional. She felt a thrill in each movement, a fragile exhilaration, as though every step carried both risk and reward. His voice finally broke the silence, soft and deliberate, speaking of dreams deferred and journeys not yet taken. She listened, enraptured, realizing that every word held resonance beyond its meaning, vibrating through her chest. The mist rising from the canal wrapped around them, a tender veil separating them from the rest of the world. She allowed herself to lean slightly closer, drawn not just by curiosity, but by something deeper, elemental. The boat rocked gently, a rhythmic sway that seemed to mirror the quickening of her heartbeat. She realized in that moment that love could be like this, patient, fluid, and inevitable, unfolding naturally, without demand. Each second stretched and expanded, each detail amplified. The smell of rain, the touch of hands, the glint of lamplight on water. She felt courage blooming within her, fragile yet insistent, urging her to embrace this connection fully. Their laughter mixed with the lapping water, forming a melody that belonged solely to them. He asked if she had ever felt such a pull before, and she shook her head, recognizing the uniqueness of the sensation. They paused near a small canal-side garden, stepping onto the wet stones carefully, letting the boat drift gently behind. The garden was hidden, overgrown, yet inviting, a secret sanctuary in the middle of the city. She noticed the delicate shapes of leaves sparkling with raindrops, the subtle rustling in the night air. He reached for her hand again, firmer this time, grounding her in the sensation of presence and awareness. Each glance, each touch, each soft breath became a conversation, words unnecessary in the clarity of connection. The garden's shadows stretched around them, forming an intimate cocoon, shielding them from reality beyond. She felt a profound serenity, a gentle certainty that this night would linger in her memory indefinitely. Every instinct told her this was rare, an encounter that defied logic yet felt inevitable. They walked slowly, savoring each moment, letting the night dictate the rhythm of steps and glances. She realized that love could arrive without fanfare, disguised as coincidence, woven seamlessly into the fabric of ordinary life. The moon peeked from behind clouds, silvering the wet leaves, casting patterns that danced across their faces. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, a quiet fire of anticipation and recognition. The night, the mist, the garden, and the water all seemed orchestrated, as though the universe had paused for this singular unfolding. They finally paused near a fountain, water glistening under dim lights, and the silence became sacred, pregnant with possibility. He tilted his head, searching her eyes, and she understood the unspoken. Some moments are infinite, lasting far beyond the clock. She felt a delicate courage rise, allowing herself to exist fully in the intensity of the connection. Raindrops continued to fall softly, their gentle rhythm syncing with the pulse of her heart. They spoke in whispers, stories shared in fragments, laughter and sighs blending seamlessly with the night. She felt the thrill of vulnerability, the tender ache of hope, and the intoxicating promise of beginnings. The night carried them, each step forward, both literal and metaphorical, a journey into intimacy, trust, and discovery. She realized that some meetings are fated, a collision of currents that leaves indelible marks. Every glance, every gentle nudge, every brush of fingers became a testament to the fragile wonder of love. And as the first light of dawn threatened the horizon, she understood the truth. Moments like these transform ordinary nights into stories that last forever. The dawn crept slowly over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Yet the city remained wrapped in mist, preserving the secret intimacy of the night. She walked beside him through the quiet streets, their footsteps synchronized, a rhythm that needed no conscious effort. Every building, every shadow, every puddle seemed to acknowledge their presence, silent witnesses to the unfolding connection. He spoke softly of distant memories, places he had seen and people he had known. Yet she felt his words more than heard them. She shared fragments of her life too, each revelation delicate, like glass ornaments held carefully in open hands. The air carried the faint scent of rain on stone and the subtle sweetness of early blooms, mingling with the faint trace of his cologne. She noticed the way his eyes lingered, not in judgment, but in understanding, a gentle acceptance that soothed her nerves. Each shared laugh, each whispered comment formed invisible threads, connecting their souls more tightly than she had anticipated. The city seemed to stretch around them, elongated and soft-edged, as if reality itself was yielding to the quiet magic. She felt the thrill of recognition, an electric certainty that some encounters are pre-written, fated by forces unseen. They paused at a small cafe, its lights glowing faintly, like fireflies caught in jars, and he suggested a brief respite inside. She agreed, and together they stepped into warmth, the scent of roasted coffee beans and fresh bread embracing them like a familiar melody. The barista glanced briefly at them, a knowing smile hinting that she had entered a story invisible to others. They found a corner table, quiet and secluded, where the conversation resumed seamlessly, an effortless continuation of the night's intimacy. She noticed the small gestures that revealed his character, the tilt of his chair, the delicate handling of a cup, the patience in his gaze. He asked about her dreams and fears, and she found herself speaking freely, revealing more than she had to anyone in years. Each answer he gave was thoughtful, resonating in a way that made her chest tighten pleasantly. The world outside became background music, the rain fading into soft percussion, leaving them cocooned in shared awareness. She realized that love is often a layering of moments like this, subtle, tender, and profoundly grounding. Every glance, every touch, every pause in speech communicated volumes that words could never fully express. They laughed softly at remembered jokes and at spontaneous thoughts, a playful rhythm balancing the deeper currents of connection. She felt herself letting go of old apprehensions, the walls she had built around her heart dissolving slowly in his presence. The cafe seemed timeless, each second stretching, each sip of coffee lingering longer than usual, a metaphor for the night's slow unfolding. He leaned back, eyes catching the soft light, and she felt a wave of warmth at the quiet intensity of his attention. Every subtle movement, the brush of his fingers against hers, the gentle smile, carried a resonance that made her pulse quicken. She realized that trust and attraction can intertwine invisibly, creating spaces where vulnerability becomes exhilarating rather than frightening. Outside, the sun began its climb, scattering fog and casting golden streaks across damp streets. She noticed reflections in puddles, distorted yet beautiful, mirroring the fragile perfection of the night spent together. He offered a hand, and she accepted without hesitation, feeling the grounding yet liberating force of their connection. Each step was a negotiation between fear and hope, excitement and serenity, and she reveled in the delicate balance. They wandered through narrow alleys, now illuminated by morning light, the city revealing hidden charms she had never seen before. He pointed out small details, a painted door, a carved railing, and she felt as if he had unlocked a secret world just for her. They stopped near a canal, watching water shimmer under the emerging sun, the quiet majesty of the scene overwhelming in its simplicity. She felt a sense of gratitude, awe, and wonder, emotions she rarely experienced in ordinary life. Conversation flowed effortlessly, touching on dreams, past regrets, fleeting whims, and whimsical what-ifs that made them both laugh. Each story shared seemed to deepen the invisible bond, layering trust, curiosity, and subtle admiration. The city seemed to fade, leaving only the narrow strip of street, the canal, and the space they occupied together. She realized that love often reveals itself in these small, persistent moments, invisible to anyone not present. Every shared glance, every incidental touch became part of a language all their own. They paused on a small bridge, looking at their reflections, distorted but intertwined, and she felt a profound connection. The water moved gently beneath them, echoing the flow of the night, and the rhythm of their hearts. He reached for her hand, fingers intertwining naturally, and she felt a quiet rush of certainty. The garden ahead was still misty, dew clinging to flowers, a secret paradise they had discovered together. They wandered through it slowly, letting the beauty of shared silence speak where words could not. She felt her chest expand with something fragile yet infinite, a combination of relief, excitement, and awe. The bridge between hesitation and trust had been crossed, and she felt the subtle thrill of uncharted intimacy. The mist swirled around them, softening edges, blurring the line between reality and dream, night and day. Each laugh, each sigh, each step became a rhythm, a heartbeat, a narrative written in silence. She realized that some connections cannot be forced. They arrive fully formed, demanding only recognition. The morning light strengthened, but they lingered, aware that these rare moments were too precious to rush. He smiled softly, not as a promise, but as an acknowledgement of shared understanding. She returned the smile, heart lifted, realizing the depth of emotion they had quietly built. Every subtle glance, every brush of fingers, every unspoken word carried gravity, weight, and wonder. The air smelled sweet and clean, alive with possibility, hinting at a day that would be remembered forever. She felt herself grounded, yet soaring, tethered by his presence, yet free to explore her own emotions. TUA